Hello, hello, everyone. Another day of discussion, another topic to learn. Before we go through our proper discussion for this presentation, let's have a quick activity first. The activity will be four pics, one word. For the given four photos in each slide, you will be guessing what word or term being asked. Let's start. Four pics, one word has seven letters, starts with letter S, ends with letter T. What word or term is it? That is correct. The word is support. Next, four pigs, one word, has five letters, starts with letter G, ends with letter E. What word it is? That is correct. The word is guide. Next, four pigs, one word, has six letters, starts with letter E, ends with letter E also. What term is it? That is correct. The word is engage. Last four pigs, one word, has eight letters, starts with letter S, ends with letter Y. What term is it? That is correct. The word is strategy. So now, our lesson this morning will be language scaffolding. Welcome! This presentation will guide you through the language scaffolding strategy designed to support young children's vocabulary growth and oral language skills, which are essential for their future reading success. Emphasize that this strategy is designed specifically for preschool age children to help build their vocabulary and oral communication skills, foundational for reading and learning success. Research by Owens 2001 highlights that the first 5 years of life are critical for language development. Children exposed to a variety of words and grammatically correct language during this period are more likely to: first, they understand and use complex language; second, they develop stronger literacy skills; third, succeed in reading and communication in later school years; and also teachers or pre-kindergarten teachers, they hold the key to providing this strong foundation. What is language scaffolding? Language scaffolding is a purposeful teaching strategy that supports and extends children's oral language development. It involves providing structured support, just like scaffolding, around a building to help children develop the vocabulary, sentence structure, and conversational skills they need to become confident communicators. Rather than relying on isolated language lessons, language scaffolding is integrated into daily routines, activities, and interactions, making learning both natural and meaningful. Proceeding, we have the key components of language scaffolding. First is the intentional use of vocabulary during daily classroom routines. Teachers thoughtfully incorporate rich and specific vocabulary throughout the day. It could be during arrival, play, meals, transitions, and cleanup. This constant exposure helps children associate words with real experiences. Second is structured and natural language interactions. So, educators provide both structured support. Examples are in modeling correct sentences and encourage spontaneous language through conversation, questions, and storytelling. These interactions help children learn how to express ideas and engage in meaningful dialogue. Third components or strategy is pairing vocabulary words with specific activities. So each classroom activity becomes an opportunity to reinforce vocabulary. For example, during a cooking activity, words like mix, stir, measure, and pour are introduced and practiced in context. Last component or strategy is encouraging children to speak, ask, and respond in conversation. Teachers prompt children to use the language to make requests, answer questions, and describe what they see or express their needs and ideas. So children are encouraged to form complete sentences and participate in peer-to-peer conversations. Why vocabulary development matter? Vocabulary development is a critical part of early childhood education because it lays the foundation for many important skills that children will need throughout their academic journey and beyond. Here's why children with larger vocabularies tend to do better in school and life. First, better understanding of stories. When children know more words, they can comprehend stories more easily. Reading or listening to a story involves recognizing and understanding the meaning of many words. If a child knows the vocabulary used in a story, they can follow along with the plot, understand the characters, and grasp the message or lesson being conveyed. This comprehension is essential for developing a love for reading and for learning from books. Next is ask more questions. Children who have a rich vocabulary are more curious and confident in expressing themselves. They tend to ask more questions about the world around them because they have the words to do so. Asking questions is a key part of learning as it helps children clarify ideas, deepen their understanding, and engage actively with others. Third and last is develop stronger reading and writing skills. Vocabulary knowledge directly supports reading and writing. When children recognize and understand more words, they can decode text more easily and make sense of what they read. Likewise, in writing, a rich vocabulary enables children to express themselves in more detailed, and this ultimately contributes to better academic performance across subjects. We have now the following activities that can be used in any preschool setting to facilitate a rich language environment and to promote communication development. These activities can be used throughout the day and can be embedded into daily routines. First is encourage pair-to-pair conversations. It is building social language through child-to-child interaction. Its purpose is children often learn language best when they use it in real or in meaningful situations. While adult child interactions are valuable, peer to peer conversations provide opportunities for children to practice language in a more natural or social context. Talking with peer helps them build confidence, develop social skills, and expand their vocabulary through back and forth dialogue. The strategy for this activity: instead of always responding to a child's request directly, guide them to speak to another child. Example: a child said, "I want the red crayon." Teacher redirects, as Brett, "May I use the red crayon when you're finished?" So, by doing this, the teacher is prompting the child to form a complete sentence, use polite language, interact with a peer rather than relying only on adults. Children become more comfortable communicating with peers, which builds social confidence. Second activity is promote choice making. It is encouraging language through everyday decisions. Its purpose is giving children the opportunity to make choices not only fosters independence and decision making skills, but also creates natural, meaningful moments to practice language. When children are asked to make a choice, they are motivated to express themselves clearly to get what they want. The strategy is throughout the day, offer children a choice between two or more items. Frame your questions in a way that encourages them to respond verbally. Example: teachers ask, "Would you like the raisins or the goldfish?" Encourage the child to respond with, "I want the raisins, please." If needed, model the full sentence first, then prompt the child to repeat or attempt the sentence independently. It motivates children to use language to express preferences. When children are offered something they genuinely want, they are more likely to make the effort to communicate clearly. This gives them a real reason to speak and practice using words in context.
The third activity for language scaffolding is the narrate events. The goal of narration is to pair the child's play and actions with the appropriate language. Narration is like being a commentator for a sports event heard over the radio. You can use strategy like talk about everything that the child is doing, as if you were describing it to someone who is not in the room to see it. For example, if children are in the black area, you can narrate by saying, "Look how Jimmy is taking the red block and placing it on the very top of the tower. Oh no, I think it's going to fall. Crash! The tower fell to the ground." As the child repeatedly hears the words that go along with what he or she is doing, that child is more likely to use more productive language about his or her own play. The fourth activity is the presenting vocabulary with pictures or objects. The purpose of this activity is to teach a child the meaning of a new word faster and more completely by letting them see, hear, and touch the real thing being talked about. You can use strategy like let the child experience the object in as many ways as possible. For example, while holding the broom you find inside the classroom, you could say, "This is a broom. We can use it to sweep up dirt from the floor." Since children are more likely to learn the meaning of a word or the function of an object when the actual object or picture is present, in this way, children can pair what you say about the object or auditory input with what the object looks, visual input, and what the object feels like, tactile input. The fifth activity is the use specific language. The purpose of this activity is to help children learn new words and how to use them correctly. You can use strategy like when talking to children, teachers should be as specific as possible with the language they use. Teachers should avoid using general, non-specific words, example, that, there, and it. For example, rather than saying to a child, "Can you please put that over there?" Be specific and say, "Can you please put the book on my desk?" In this way, children will hear the names of objects over and over. The more children hear a word being used correctly, the more likely they will be to use that word properly on their own. The sixth activity is the create silly situation. The purpose of this activity is to help children talk more and explain their thinking. You can use strategy like what you usually do during a familiar routine. For example, during morning circle, you can ask the children to get their blankets and go to their spots for nap time. This creates an opportunity for the children to explain the absurdity of the situation. When you create a silly situation, you are encouraging children to verbalize an explanation which contributes to language development.
So the seventh activity is to provide opportunities where help is needed. So the purpose of this activity is to create a situation where children need to ask for help, which encourages them to practice communication. So some of the strategy that you can use is to give children materials or tasks that require assistance so they will be motivated to ask for help. So an example for that is if a children or a child wants to blow up bubbles but the lid is too tight, you can say, "It looks like you are having difficulty opening the bottle of bubbles. Would you like to ask for help?" Because sometimes children don't ask for help unless they really need it. So by giving them tasks that are a little tricky, they get the chance to practice asking for help and communicating with others. The eighth activity is the model desired responses. So, the purpose of this activity is to teach children how to use correct words, sentences, or language structures by showing them examples. So, the strategy that you can use in this activity is to demonstrate appropriate language, correct pronunciation, or expected responses in real life situations. So, an example for that is if a child says, "Me want a truck," you should respond with, "I want the truck," and ask them to repeat after you. "I want the truck." Okay, so in this activity, children learn by copying. When teacher shows the right way to say something, children can hear, repeat, and practice correct words or sentences. So the ninth activity is the outer routine. So the purpose of this activity is to create opportunities for children to make requests and use language by changing something in their usual routine. So the strategy that you can use in this activity is to leave out unnecessary material or to forget or step in an activity so the child has to ask for it. So an example for that is to set up for painting but leave out the paint. When children notice, you will ask them, "What do we need to paint?" to encourage them to say, "We need paint." Okay, so changing small things in daily activities encourage children to speak up and make requests. It helps them use words when something is missing or different. For the last activity, expand child's response. So the purpose of this activity is to help children learn to use longer and more descriptive language. So the strategy that we can use on this activity is to add new words or phrases when repeating what the child says to expand their vocabulary or and communication skills. So, for example, if a child says ball, you might respond, "Yes, I see the small red ball." So when a child says something short, the adult or we should repeat it but adds more detail. This teaches children new words and help them talk in longer sentences. And now that we are done now with our topic for today, we will have an assessment. So we have prepared here a 4-item questionnaire. So you just have to answer the following in 3 to 5 sentences. So the first question is, how does language scaffolding make learning easier for students who are still learning English? The second question is, choose one scaffolding activity and explain how it helps students learn language better. And the third question is, as a future teacher, among the 10 activities in language scaffolding, what do you think is the most effective? And the last question, how can expanding a child's response improve language development? So, class, that is all for our discussion today. Goodbye and thank you, and see you next meeting. Bye.